Tonight, Israeli voters at the polls. The latest as Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu fights to keep his job for the second time this year. Plus, a new push to impeach Justice Brett Kavanaugh, what it could mean for the future of the Supreme Court, and the fight over gun control in America. We speak to the father of a shooting victim about what he thinks needs to be done to prevent mass shootings. All this and more tonight on Faith Nation.
Benjamin Netanyahu in the political fight of his life. Welcome to Faith Nation. I'm John Jessup.
And I'm Jenna Browder. Polls are closed in Israel tonight. Today, voters there took part in an unprecedented do-over election.
That's right. For the second time this year, Israelis had to choose between Prime Minister Netanyahu and the Likud party and his rival Benny Gantz and the Blue and White Party.
Yeah, about 5 months ago, Israeli voters were in this exact same position. That vote ending with Netanyahu holding on to his position. But months of political turmoil that followed because he was unable to form a government coalition.
Without that coalition, Netanyahu called for voters to head back to the polls to hold another election, fighting for his 5th term in office.
CBN Middle East Bureau Chief Chris Mitchell, along with Julie Stahl and Chris Waggy, have the latest from Jerusalem.
John and Jenna, we're here at the Likud headquarters, and the results of the exit polls have just come out. It looks like it actually might be a closer election this time than it was in April. John, you've been covering elections here in Israel since 1996. How would you say this election compares to many of the others that you've covered?
Well, it's tight, and it's really pretty amazing that the voters would go back and do almost essentially the same thing as they did the first time 6 months ago. And so nothing much moved on the meter, and a lot of people had predicted that. And that's what we see. And now it looks as if Abigail Robertson, who quit the coalition, refused to join a Netanyahu government back in April, May, June, now will have enough seats to call the shots, whether it will be Benny Gantz of the Blue and White Party or Benjamin Netanyahu that wins his support. And so and he has a long-standing bitter rivalry with Netanyahu, and so it's looking tough for the Prime Minister, but I would say not impossible.
Right. And Julie, you've been talking to Israelis for the last several weeks. Do you think there's an appetite for even a third election if it got to that?
I think Israelis, I don't know what they would do if it came to a third election. One of the things, doesn't matter who they were going to vote for, they said, for sure, we can't have another election. This has really drained the people. It's a lot of negativity in campaigning. You're always blasting your opponent. And it's gone on for months and months and months. So I think Israelis are tired of it. One thing that they had said was that they thought it was going to be a really low voter turnout. And it appears that it was at least as much as it was in April. So it wasn't as low as had been anticipated. So people actually got out and they did their job. And, they were hoping for different results maybe.
Right. John, you talked earlier about the divisions in Israeli society. Why do you think that's so important?
Well, I think especially this religious-secular divide is something that we see where some of the religious parties did pretty well in this second vote, but it's going to exacerbate those divisions, especially when whoever is chosen, Benny Gantz or Benjamin Netanyahu, are chosen to try and form that government. And it looks like the president is not going to allow them an extra 2 weeks to do it. You can get up to 42 days, but I think the president is going to say, make it happen sooner than that. The public is tired of it. So I guess that increases the chances of a unity government between Likud, Blue and White, and possibly Lieberman. But where does that leave Prime Minister Netanyahu? That's the big question over the next days and to a couple weeks.
Yeah. And finally, Julie, what do you think is at stake for Israelis? How important is this election?
I think it's really important. I think it's important that it's settled, and it's settled in a good way. I think Israelis are tired of it. There's a lot of security issues going on with Iran and various things, Hezbollah, Hamas in Gaza. Yeah. There's a lot of things going on in the country, and I don't think Israel can really afford to just keep dragging this on and on and on. Also, there are social issues that people are concerned about.
Right. And I just came back from Saudi Arabia, and certainly the attack on the Saudi Arabian oil processing facility really raises the specter of a regional war, and that's really certain. You want a stable government here in Israel, perhaps a unity government if it goes to that. So, John, Julie, thanks for joining us. And John and Jenna, back to you, and we'll be following this. This is not over yet. Even things may change tonight, and certainly the next few days are going to determine the future and fate of Israel. Back to you in Washington.
All right, thanks, Chris, and the Jerusalem team. Well, Iran's supreme leader has shut down the prospect of all talks with the U.S. following this weekend's massive attack on a Saudi oil refinery. This as President Trump backed off some from his comment about the U.S. being locked and loaded. CBN White House correspondent Ben Kennedy joins us with more. Ben?
Well, Jenna, President Trump appears to be taking a different stance, saying he doesn't want war with anybody, suggesting that a U.S. military response may not happen. The commander-in-chief is now taking a wait-and-see approach, a move which has been met with criticism in the past. U.S. officials say 12 cruise missiles and 20 drones were used in the missile strike on a key oil facility in Saudi Arabia. At least one drone and one missile were left intact. An investigation is underway, but when President Trump was asked if he's seen evidence that Iran was behind the attack, he said it is looking that way.
As the president said yesterday, it's certainly looking like Iran was behind these attacks. Our intelligence community at this very hour is working diligently to review the evidence. The Secretary of State is traveling to Saudi Arabia today to discuss our response. If the attacks were initiated from Iran, the truth is they would just be the latest in a series of increasingly dangerous escalations instigated by the Islamic Republic.
So Vice President Mike Pence pretty much echoed what President Trump said here at the White House. Iran says its proxy, the Houthi rebels in neighboring Yemen, were responsible. But both the U.S. and Saudi Arabia insist they are incapable of making such an attack. Oil prices spiked nearly 15% on Monday as American consumers brace for higher gas prices. Jenna, John?
CBN White House correspondent Ben Kennedy, thanks for that report. Well, to Capitol Hill now, and new calls for impeachment against Supreme Court Justice Brett Kavanaugh. Massachusetts Congresswoman Ayanna Pressley today announcing a House resolution to begin an inquiry on the issue. It comes in the wake of new allegations of sexual misconduct from Kavanaugh's college days. His supporters have seized on how the reported victim doesn't even recall the alleged incident.
On the basis of this flimsy, uncorroborated story, they're calling for Justice Kavanaugh to be impeached. But it would be a mistake to dismiss this as a bad case of sour grapes. This is not just a left-wing obsession with one man. It's part of a deliberate effort to attack judicial independence.
The Judicial Crisis Network's Carrie Severino co-wrote the book Justice on Trial about the confirmation of Justice Kavanaugh, and she joins us now for more. Carrie, good to see you. Thanks for joining us. What do you make of these latest round of allegations against Justice Kavanaugh?
Yeah, unfortunately, this is just more out of the same playbook that we saw last year. And it's really part of the reason Molly and I wrote our book, because we wanted people to understand this is not just coming out of the blue. We talk about some of the Bork and the Thomas hearings and the kinds of patterns we've seen. We knew there would be another attempt to smear a Supreme Court nominee or justice. We just didn't know it would be Justice Kavanaugh again. We thought maybe it'd be the next nominee. So that's really disturbing to see these kinds of smears being trotted out yet again, I think ultimately in an attempt to threaten and intimidate the justice, because they're worried he's going to make decisions that they don't agree with.
Carrie, Delaware Senator Chris Coons today called the additional FBI investigation at the conclusion of the Kavanaugh Senate hearings a sham. And we remember that the White House ordered a limited investigation. Do you think the Bureau could have done a better job of putting this issue to bed?
The investigation they were doing was an investigation of the credible allegations at the time. The allegation that the New York Times just is talking about is in fact not credible. It is only credible if you leave out all of the information that they also left out in their story. The fact that the woman involved herself has said she doesn't even remember it. The fact that the man who's making the allegation, who he is not even talking to the authors of the book himself, has a motive to get back at Kavanaugh because of hostility from the Clinton era, where they were on opposite sides of the Bill Clinton legal drama in Whitewater. So this is one of the dozens of spurious allegations that the FBI had to wade through to get to the credible ones. The compass of the investigation had to do with what those undecided senators felt really was credible and needed to be looked into. This did not fit into that category.
Carrie, Axios has a story out about how Democrats have a 2020 strategy to paint three villains in Washington: President Trump, Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell, and Justice Kavanaugh. Do you think this is an effective strategy?
I think they're absolutely right that this is part of their strategy. I'm not sure whether it will be effective. We saw last year that the Kavanaugh confirmation certainly did ignite a lot of hostility, opposition, anger, screaming, yelling on their side, but it also really outraged a lot of people on the right and in the center who said, this is not an appropriate way to carry on our public discourse. We don't want to see someone smeared. We don't want to see the idea of due process just thrown out the window simply because we disagree with someone politically. And so I think they risk igniting a lot of those same frustrations again. And I don't think that's what they want to do going into the 2020 election.
Carrie Severino with the Judicial Crisis Network. Thank you for being with us today.
Thank you.
Well, a push to impeach the president has one from his inner circle testifying on Capitol Hill. Coming up, what Corey Lewandowski told lawmakers today.
Introducing the CBN Bible from CBN.com. Now, an easier way to study the Bible and grow in your faith. Highlight your favorite verse. Read separate versions at a glance. Click and read a commentary. Or cross-reference your favorite verse using the Strong's Concordance. All the right tools to study the Bible, all in one place. The CBN Bible, available at cbn.com/Bible or the iTunes App Store.
It has the power to influence weight loss, boost your immune system, and improve brain function.
We've seen an explosion of data on the role of the gut microbiome in health.
The free Build a Better Gut booklet reveals the latest information about the gut microbiome. You'll discover how your gut affects the rest of your health.
The gut microbiome has been linked to depression and cancer and heart disease.
Learn how to build a stronger, healthier gut.
The microbiome, if it's in good composition, are really protecting us all the time from more invasive things.
Get the Build a Better Gut booklet, free from the Christian Broadcasting Network. Call 1-800-700-7000 or go to cbn.com/buildabettergut.
You need to make sure that your microbes are working with you, not against you.
And if you order online, you'll get immediate access to the Build a Better Gut series, a digital copy of the booklet, and related bonus material. Build a Better Gut today. Call 1-800-700-7000 or go to cbn.com/buildabettergut for your free copy.
Here, we're committed to a heritage of rigorous scholarship dating back over 1,000 years.
And to a faith tradition dating back 1,000 more.
This is how we create a culture of inquiry where no topic is off limits.
And a culture of hope.
Anything's possible!
It's Christian leadership.
And it's changing the world for the better.
It's higher learning.
It's greater knowing.
It's what makes us whole.
It's what makes us regent.
On Capitol Hill today, Democratic members of the House Judiciary Committee grilled President Trump's former campaign manager. Corey Lewandowski testified as part of the committee's first so-called impeachment investigation. But he wasn't offering much insight into the conversations he had with Trump, including those on the Russia investigation.
Congressman, the White House has directed I not disclose the substance of any discussions with the president or his advisors to protect executive branch confidentiality. And I recognize this is not my privilege, but I am respecting the White House's decision.
Let me ask you some questions about your relationship with the president after he assumed office. How many times has the president asked you to meet him in the White House?
The White House has directed not to disclose the substance of any discussions.
How many times did you meet with the president alone in the White House in 2017?
I don't know the answer to that.
How many times did he direct you to deliver a message to a member of his cabinet?
The White House has directed not to disclose the substance of any discussions with the president.
Did he ever discuss?
And we now bring in our esteemed panel for more Race Wars. As a longtime Washington journalist who currently co-hosts the nationally syndicated radio broadcast World Affairs, and of course CBN's chief political analyst David Brody. Gentlemen, thanks for being with us. David, let's start with you. We were watching Lewandowski in the newsroom earlier today. Is it safe to say that it was heavy on theatrics and light on substance?
Yeah, theatrics. It was a circus. It's honestly turned into somewhat of a joke. I mean, he wasn't going to answer any questions. The Democrats, were pretty much on political soapboxes the whole way through. It was kind of like the Hatfields and the McCoys. You choose the side. It was Cain and Abel without the murder. I mean, the bottom line is this was what we expected. Corey Lewandowski, a loyal soldier to Donald Trump, didn't expect anything different today.
Ray, what's your take?
Well, they are running out the clock. The committee knows it has to do something. Lewandowski knows he doesn't want to answer. And he also knows that this isn't actionable quickly enough to make any difference. He's got two political clocks he's watching, the presidential clock and his own senatorial ambitions in New Hampshire.
Ray, there's a new push to impeach Supreme Court Justice Brett Kavanaugh. Where do you see this heading, and does this have any traction?
If I had a guess, I think it's going to end up as a muddle and not end up removing Associate Justice Kavanaugh from the bench. It may muddy him up a bit, but also has the risk of muddying up the people who bring those accusations against him. So it's a really not a slam dunk call for either side, Kavanaugh's detractors or his supporters.
Yeah, and then you have Dick Durbin today, one of the top Democrats, saying, quote, get real when talking about impeachment. He says, are we going to try to impeach everyone and everything about every topic? So if Dick Durbin is saying that, good luck on impeachment. Not going to happen.
To campaign 2020, the Trump campaign is intent on flipping New Mexico. The president, of course, there last night with a big rally. The Pew Research Center's Hispanic trend shows Hispanics who identified with the Republican Party increased by 3 percentage points from 2016 to 2018. Ray, can Trump really make a dent in the Hispanic vote?
Not really. The metric that political pros on both sides talk about is 40%. If you can win 40% of the Latino vote, it brings some states into possible territory for the Republicans that wouldn't be there otherwise. And George W. Bush won about that level. But Donald Trump starts from a very much lower base and is simply not going to, after using them as piñatas for years, make very much of a dent. He's got a shot at some, but not many.
It was a bit surreal at the New Mexico rally. I mean, some of the lines he was trying to have, we love our Hispanics. I mean, it was just kind of vintage, positive or negative, but it was vintage Donald Trump in terms of those lines. Look, John McCain lost New Mexico by 15 points. Mitt Romney lost it by 10. Donald Trump lost it by 8, actually a very tight 8 points. When I say tight, it was going into the 7%. So the point is that they see a trend. You know, the economy's doing well. Play to the pro-family values. Maybe you tick up a little bit, but you're right, 40%. That's the mark, and that's going to be tough.
Yeah, finally tonight, Dancing with the Stars. Sean Spicer, former White House press secretary, he made his big debut last night on the premiere. David, your thoughts?
Well, you know, kudos for him, you know, to get out there. And then the Seinfeld puffy shirt scenario, and green no less. You just got to give him credit. I say it's a victory because he made it there. And, you know, liberals have got to be going crazy. Sean Spicer comes to Hollywood and dances with the stars. And by the way, the ratings kind of went up 4% or so. You know, the liberals can't buy a break nowadays. I don't know.
Not just any poofy shirt, but an electric green poofy shirt. And
Yes.
I don't know about that color. I don't think you could catch me dead in something like that.
Hard to miss in that
Add a
color.
shimmy to that, and there you go.
Well, Ray, David, thank you so much for being with us today.
Thanks,
Great
guys.
to see you both.
The father of a high school student killed in Parkland talks to Faith Nation about the systemic breakdowns that led to the deadly school shooting when we come back.
Life. It's meant to be lived fully. Jesus said it. I came to give you life. Life to the fullest. Life in your family. Life in your finances. Life in your body, mind, and spirit. Life in your everyday. At CBN.com, we're taking what Jesus said seriously. We're here to help you discover life. Life. Live it fully. CBN.com. Want to be a part of a community that inspires your spiritual growth while winning prizes? The all-new MyCBN app. Connect with the community for prayer and encouragement. Track and set spiritual goals. Enjoy conversation starters with friends and family. And collect points to win prizes. The all-new MyCBN app. A great place to belong. Download the app at cbn.com/mobile. Grow, connect, have fun. The all-new MyCBN app.
Watch breaking news, in-depth exclusive stories and programs, from health to entertainment, you won't find anywhere else. The CBN News Channel. a perspective you can trust. Enjoy credible news reporting from around the world. Discover inspiring programs and stories of hope, all in one place from a Christian perspective. The CBN News Channel, a perspective you can trust. Check your local listings or visit cbnnewschannel.com.
Come home to the sounds of Southern Gospel from CBN Radio. You'll enjoy a rich Southern blend of bluegrass, classic gospel, and Southern gospel favorites like the Gaithers, the Crab Family, and bluegrass sounds like Mountain Faith. So make yourself at home with the all-new CBN Southern Gospel, now available at cbnradio.com.
The gun control debate is taking center stage here in Washington. As lawmakers push to pass legislation, the Trump administration has floated everything from red flag laws to background checks.
That's right. Andrew Pollack has found himself in the middle of that debate after his 18-year-old daughter, Meadow, was shot and killed during the mass shooting at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School. He spoke with Amber Strong about his quest for answers.
Meadow was the youngest of my three, and she was the toughest out of all of them. She was most like me from all my other children. There's nothing that she couldn't have got done. And she was aspiring to be an attorney. She would have graduated that year. She was 18, and she was graduating and enrolled in a university in the fall. She could be a supermodel, dress up, and then the next day she could be with her brothers on some ATVs out in the woods. So she was just an all-American girl, and there's nothing that she wouldn't do for people. She would go out of her way when new students came to school to show them around. And to the last minute of her life, she was fighting on that third floor. She tried to save one of the other victims by sheltering and covering them, but it didn't work.
In the book, you list 42 what-ifs, and those what-ifs are from systematic things going on at the school, in schools, period, and then things that have happened that day that just shouldn't have happened. What are some of those things that happened the day of the shooting that just shouldn't have happened?
I could start right from the beginning. The Uber driver picks him up at his house, and he gets out of his house with a rifle bag. What if the Uber driver actually was trained properly and knew what a rifle bag looked like? He drives to the school. You have an incompetent monitor at the front gate. He says it. He goes, "I see crazy boy get out of the car with a rifle bag." All he had to do is call code red, and my daughter would have been alive on the third floor. If the gates were shut, my daughter lives. You know, what if they would have shut the gates and they followed protocol? What if, when the monitor called the other monitor in the school, if he would have just yelled, "Everyone, it's a lockdown," and went code red, but no, he went and hid in a closet? You know, I could go on with so many of these things that make me so ill to my stomach, and not one of them takes responsibility for the failures, and that's what leads me to writing the book. So other parents know exactly what happened in Parkland. They know about the people that failed, the policies, and they could realize it and then see what's happening. You know, if they purchase my book, which I want them to, Why Meadow Died, and they could see what happened in Parkland, the failures, the policies, and then they'd be able to see if it's going on in their child's school, because there's thousands of schools that have these policies in them.
Yeah. You say that you have found some answers, but then you have other Parkland parents who found other answers. The administration is looking at a lot of measures for gun control, some for background checks, red flag laws. Are any of those things, they couldn't have stopped Parkland, but could they have stopped something in the future? Or could they have stopped Parkland?
The way the laws are now, nothing could have prevented it. But there were laws in place that should have prevented it that people didn't follow. Like, he punched his mother's teeth out. He could have been arrested for that, and he would have had a background. He trespassed at the school. He could have been arrested. He threatened to shoot the school up. Should have been arrested. He threatened to kill other people. Could have been arrested. So my point is, if he would have been arrested for those multitude of crimes, it would have showed up on his background. And then when he went to purchase a rifle, he would have got denied. Or when the FBI received a couple of tips that he was going to be a shooter, it would have showed up on their computer and they probably would have followed up on it. Instead, they did nothing, and it brings me here today.
Still ahead on Faith Nation, faith mixes with fashion at the Museum of the Bible.
Tikkun Olam.
This is our nature as a country.
To make the world a better place.
Literally, we felt the earth shaking.
The Christian Broadcasting Network presents To Life, how Israeli volunteers are changing the world.
This film needs to be seen by everyone.
I was in tears.
Now you can own the inspiring documentary To Life on DVD.
There is blood on our hands if we know and we walk away.
I'm so grateful that this film was made.
To Life can be yours for a gift of $10 or more. Call 1-800-700-7000 or log on to CBN.com.
We know that every minute counts to save life.
It'll bless Israel, but it'll also bless all the friends of Israel.
Discover the untold story of how Israeli volunteers are making the world a better place. Call 1-800-700-7000 or log on to CBN.com to get your copy today.
Fashion and faith have come together for a unique look at how the Bible has influenced the clothes we wear.
The inaugural fashion show at the Museum of the Bible is only part of a larger look at the book's impact around the world. Abigail Robertson gives us this front row seat.
Today, the Museum of the Bible hosted its first ever fashion show, a one-of-a-kind event featuring biblically inspired couture and designs. Event producer Linda Coldenhoven told CBN News this has been a dream of hers since before the museum was even finished.
When we came in here, it was strictly stone, well, it was just a stone cement floor and steel beams. I walked into the gathering room and I saw the Capitol right outside where the glass was going to be, and all I could envision was a very long runway.
The sold-out show featured pieces from top designers like Dolce & Gabbana, Versace, and Chanel.
When you think of all of these designers, Versace, Dolce & Gabbana, you really don't think of them as Bible followers. You know, I don't want to be judgmental, but look at the creations that they make that are inspired by the Bible.
Stylist Lauren Rothman also helped select pieces for the show.
I think that the Bible impacts fashion because fashion is based in history, and what was old always becomes new again. And like any other trend, biblically inspired clothing is really something that never goes out of style.
The finale featured a one-of-a-kind dress designed for the museum by Chiara Boni, modeled after the Sistine Chapel.
Watching that and just being inspired by the Sistine Chapel and watching it float down the runway, I thought she looked like an angel.
Many of the gowns in the show are rotated on display year-round on the museum's impact floor. Reporting from the Museum of the Bible, Abigail Robertson, CBN News.
All right, thanks, Abigail. John, what do you think of that last dress?
Fashion and faith. Who would have thunk it? That's all I can say.
Hey, go
that
well
last dress
together.
was nice. I
Yeah.
think you should maybe try to sport something like that.
We'll see. Okay.
Well, thank you for joining us for tonight's Faith Nation.
Have a great evening.